Howdy, Pitcher List fam, and welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. Brett Ford here with Scott Chu talking about hitters on Pitcher List. Scott, we finally made it to the All-Star break at the halfway point of the season. First half has been a lot of fun to watch, especially as a Tigers fan. How are things?
Oh, I mean, as obviously as a Tigers fan, they got their butts kicked by the Mariners this weekend, but who's going to complain about having possibly the best team in baseball, right? Like after you have that huge ride, that like from 0.2% playoff percent chance to making the playoffs, winning a series in the playoffs, and then, going in next year, you have no idea what to expect. Like, oh, it's a magic run. Can they do it again? Yeah, they can. They can keep being one of the best teams in baseball. So that's fun. It's been fun. We spend the whole off season trying to figure out what's going to happen the next year. And it's always nice when we get to the All-Star break, just to see how wrong we were and in how many ways we were wrong. And those precious few moments of being right so far, right? Like that's kind of how this works. It's a humbling game. Like if you want to talk about humbling, I'm in a points league. There's a meaningful purse to it. What do I do today? I'm like, all right, we got a bit of a lead. I should play it safe. I bench Kyle Stowers for Tyler Freeman. Tyler Freeman scored all of 0 points. And if you followed the box scores today, you'll know that Kyle Stowers in any, scoring format scored about 1 million, roughly 1 million. So that was good. That was very humbling for me. I was like, oh, well, what if he goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, which is absolutely what can happen with him. Or he can go 5 for 5 with 3 home runs, 6 RBI, 5 runs scored, something ridiculous. Yeah, 1 million points. It was good. But for that move, I would have maintained my lead. But I played it safe and I lost.
Well, Stowers was fun. He was an Oriole once, and I don't know if you guys are buyers of the revenge game narrative, but this whole series in Baltimore was his first trip back to Baltimore after the trade last season, and he made him pay for it. Marlins took 2 out of 3 from the Orioles, and now the Orioles are 7.5 games back of the 3rd wild card spot, and probably locked into selling at the deadline. As an Orioles fan, that's probably best case scenario for them right now. I hope that they don't compete this year because I want them to be sellers at the deadline. So it's kind of a weird duality, Scott, with our two teams, the Tigers exceeding expectation or continuing to ascend, where the Orioles are on a completely opposite trajectory, and super frustrating to be a fan of currently. But
if it's any consolation, last trade deadline, the Tigers were sellers. They sold Jack Flaherty for Trey Sweeney and some other pieces. So just throwing it out there, you can be a seller and still make it.
Thank you. I appreciate the optimism.
It's a 0.2% chance if we go back to the math, but that's not 0.
I will say I'm going to miss Ryan O'Hearn and Cedric Mullins if they get traded in the final years of their respective contracts. They are the most likely to get moved, it sounds like. So those are 2 guys that have been with the organization that have done really great things for the organization. I will certainly miss them as a fan if they do get moved. But let's move into some first half discussions. Touch on a couple things, just from watching 85 games of baseball and enjoying just the first half overall. First thing we should dive into here is kind of first half fantasy MVP bats. There's been a handful of guys that have really propelled teams to success in this first half, and some of them have really exceeded expectations. And of course, they're mostly familiar names. But Scott, talk us through. We'll start with PCA. Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG has been absolutely outstanding in the first half. Let's start right there.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? So he's sitting at 25 home runs, 27 stolen bases. He's already cleared 70 RBI. That's probably where he had been projected coming into the season, was about 70 RBI. We thought he might be hitting towards the bottom of this lineup. He was very aggressive at the plate. Like, it wasn't as though we didn't think he had upside. Like, let's be clear. It's not as though nobody thought Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG was a nobody, but we saw him last year be very volatile, right? Go have, high highs, low lows. What we expected coming into this season was some of that, right? Some high highs, low lows. When it's all said and done, he'll probably be hitting in the bottom third of this order, but with a 250, 240, 250 batting average, but he might hit some home runs. He can definitely steal bases. And he decided he's better than that, right? So Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG, I wish I could tell you like it was some major, like his plate discipline is still the same, right? Like, and it's not as though his, like launch angle is changed much. It comes down to probably the most simple thing that can happen in baseball. He's just hitting the ball better, right? Like it's barrels. It's all about barrels. He's hitting them with much more frequency now. He's actually swinging more than he did last season, right? He's making more contact. That's a big deal. His zone contact had been improving. It was below that important 80% threshold last season. That was part of the big issue that we had in those ups and downs with Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG is you're just going to see that a lot with guys who have a zone contact under 80%. If you're missing more than 1 in 5 balls in the zone that you swing at, you're not going to have a good time. Like there'll be a while that you can lock it in, like Vicky Moniak locked it in right now. Eventually that'll probably fall away. Nolan Gorman was a guy like this. We've seen a lot of them. Even previously mentioned Kyle Stowers. This is a problem that he's had. We've seen him have these bigs up and downs because when he's locked in, he looks great, but then he loses it just a little bit. And baseball's a bit of a field game. And when they just lose it, they're not seeing the ball well. They're already not that good at making contact in the zone. They have big problems. So that's like the main thing I see that he fixed, right? Which is good because he's getting pitched less in the zone. And so with Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG, like I know everybody's question, is this sustainable? Right. And the question is what part of it, right? Like what part of it is sustainable? So we also see Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG pulling the ball a lot more, right? Particularly those balls in the air. That's what we love to see. So do I think the power is pretty real? Yeah. I mean, obviously he's going to clear 30 home runs, 35, 40 is tough. It's just this kind of home run fly ball rate, 18%. I mean, it can come with a guy who's pulling the ball up, but here's the thing. Batted ball direction is a bit random, right? There are players who have shown they can sustainably keep these high pull rates, right? But for the most part, league wide, the reason that Baseball Savant doesn't include batted ball direction in their X stats, X WOBA and all that stuff, is because they found it's not super predictive league wide, right? League wide, batted ball direction is not very predictive. It's got a lot of randomness to it. I'll compare it to line drive rates, right? Line drive rates come up and down. Most players can't sustain high ones. Most players don't have super low ones. They just have it's in the middle somewhere, right? Like we saw with Lawrence Butler this year, that his highs and lows have mostly come on the back of line drive spikes, and then they come off, and then he's not as hot anymore. And so it's really just sort of heat, right? Quotation mark. That's heat, right? Like there's hitting some extra line drives. Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG is pulling the ball more, and it may be something he can sustain, but you should be skeptical of that first when it comes to making the valuation. Trust but verify. He could do this, but I'd really like to see it first before I start calling him top 5 rest of season, right? Obviously he's top 5 up to now, but top 5 rest of season, he needs to keep doing that. Lots of players don't, right? Isaac Paredes does. He always does it. That's just what he does. Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG's not necessarily shown us he can do that. In fact, he was doing quite the opposite at times last season. So that's what I want to see with Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG to call it sustainable. The speed is obviously real. I think the batting average might come down just a little bit because, again, if he's not pulling the ball as much, some of those home runs aren't going to leave the yard. They're going to go more towards center. They're going to be outs. So we could see, and he hits a lot of fly balls. So that could be an issue there. It's a huge fly ball rate. It's actually, he spiked it again this year. It's over 50%. So yeah, it's all about that batted ball direction on the pulls, right? Even if they're barrels, it's still hard. Like not all barrels leave the yard going to center, right? So that's what's going to be important for Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG is that pull rate on those fly balls. Can he keep doing that? I believe he can, but actually doing it is more than just belief, right? It can be random. And he might even lose it, not because he was just lucky before, but he's just unlucky now, right? The difference between a pull and a center hit ball is timing is milliseconds, really. So I know that's a lot and sort of saying nothing on Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG, but nothing about this is fake, What we don't know is how sustainable it all is, right? What he's doing, the results are real, right? That's why the expected stats tell you, yes, this is how good he's been. But he's got to keep pulling the ball in the air, right? And he's got to keep making contact in the zone. He keeps doing those two things, he looks like this. He loses either one of those things, he becomes a lot streakier. I think he's obviously still a top 50, probably even top 40 player, or a hitter at least, maybe probably even player, but it becomes more variable if he loses either of those two things.
Well, we'll move on from the National League over to the American League, where Cal Raleigh has just mashed the baseball this summer. He is leading the major leagues in home runs. I think he's at 38 now. Let me double check that he didn't hit another one today.
He didn't. The Mariners hit 4 of them, and his was not one of them.
So Raleigh just been outstanding as far as power goes, and he's boosted his batting average all the way up to 259 as well. So just a monster of a season, or a monster of a first half for the Seattle catcher. What has the big dumper been doing that we like so much, Scott?
So he was always good at pulling the ball in the air. He's good at hitting it in the air. He's good at pulling it in the air, right? That was always the thing with Cal Raleigh. He just didn't do it quite this much, right? 57.6% fly ball rate. It's going to be slightly different when they enter in Sunday stats. Pulling the ball 56.4% of the time. And considering that almost none of those are on the ground, like he only hits 25% of balls on the ground, it means a lot of that pulling is happening in the air, right? So that's all legit. And he's still hitting the ball hard. He hit the ball 91 miles per hour on average last year. It's up almost a tick this year. Right. That's cool. The barrel rate is up from 15 to 20%. Like that's a big, meaningful jump. But here's the thing. A 27.1 home run fly ball rate is really, really high. Like there's a reason that he's getting these comps to like, Barry Bonds. Cause in terms of actual home runs at the break, that's the kind of company he deserves. Right. But that kind of home run fly ball rate is generally reserved for like not just the league's best power hitters, but like the elite of the elite power hitters. And in some cases, guys with a lot of power who struggle to get the ball in the air. So those two would be like James Wood and Christian Yelich. So James Wood has like a 32% home run fly ball rate and Christian Yelich has a 32% home run fly ball rate because they struggle to get the ball in the air. Right? They only hit like 25 to 30% of the balls in the air. And when they do, it's usually because they just absolutely crushed it. Right? They like never fly out because if they've hit it in the air, it's because they've hit it a very, very long way. The other guys who are up at Cal Raleigh's level are Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Kyle Schwarber, right? Eugenio Suarez. These are like high-end power hitters. So can Cal Raleigh keep doing that? Yes, but to what extent? Right. It doesn't take much for, if that home run fly ball rate comes down a little bit, yeah, it's going to affect his value. On the plus side, he is undoubtedly the number one catcher rest of season. Right. And I think he's undoubtedly in the top 15 to 20 rest of season, even if the pace slows down. Right. And I actually think even if the home run rate comes down, I think the overall production might still be there just because the rest of that offense is starting to get better behind him. Like, God forbid, Julio Rodriguez turned it on in the second half. He looked real good this series against Detroit. He's a guy that if anyone's interested in selling now because like, oh, he had a good series, I'm ready to let go. Not a bad like time to kick the tires to see what it is. Right. If you can get him for a top 30 hitter, I think that's a good move. If the rest of the offense improves around him, then, and I know that they look like they might be buyers, right? The Mariners, they've been looking at guys like Eugenio Suarez, like they could use a first and or third baseman, which a lot of teams want to get rid of, right? Ryan O'Hearn, a guy who could end up in the Mariners, just strengthen that offense. That means he gets more counting stats, right? More bang for the buck for the home runs that he's hitting, right? So I think overall, I feel a lot more confident about what Cal Raleigh is. It might not be AL home run record good, but like he can consistently be a 40 home run guy. And it's not, obviously I say that because he's at 38 now, but next year I'm probably projecting him at 40, right? He's going to hit like 50 something this year. But next year I think it's still 40 because he's just got that kind of power. And it didn't take much to go from what he was, which Cal Raleigh was a 30 to 35 home run hitter, but a little bit of a batting average problem because if those fly balls didn't go to the pull field, Yeah, it wasn't great. And he doesn't run. So it's like, I mean, that big dumper's for hitting bombs, right? It's not a sprinting man's, not a sprinting man's body that he's got. So
he's got 9 stolen bases. I mean, he
yeah,
runs a little.
that's the most surprising part of this all is 9 stolen bases. Like he's on pace for like 17 of them. That's silly. Yeah. Cal Raleigh absolutely, William Contreras was like the guy coming into the season, right? I think this is the catcher. He plays every day. He does all these things. And Cal Raleigh was quite a bit down because like, yeah, but he doesn't hit for any average and it's just 30-ish home runs. A 40 home run catcher who plays every day, that changes everything, right? If you turned up Cal Raleigh's preseason projections up by like 10 home runs, which is a lot of home runs, but if you turned it up 10 home runs, you're like, oh, Cal Raleigh might be the best catcher, right? So I think that's the one to believe in. There's no point in selling though, which is something we'll talk about later, just because of the state of catcher. Lots of people got one. They're not really that interested in trading for one. So if you've got them, hold, enjoy. You're going to keep getting all the power you've been looking for and a catcher who plays darn near every day.
Well, speaking of guys who play every day, there's one who has played almost every day this season who hasn't done that traditionally, and he's absolutely carrying fantasy teams this first half because of how good he's been, and that's Minnesota Twins outfielder Byron Buxton. Other than staying healthy, what's Buxton doing that has kind of ascended him to that next echelon of fantasy production this year?
Hitting for the cycle on bobblehead day, baby. That's what he's doing. So Byron Buxton is still Byron Buxton. I mean, if you look at the expected stats on Byron Buxton this year compared to last year, they're super similar, right? Like he's a little better in terms of like hard hit rate. It's a mild improvement. He's like pulling the ball a little bit more, but he's hitting fewer line drives. It's all about the same. He's still Byron Buxton. He's just playing, right? Like he's in games, right? So last season, like his WRC plus coming from 20, let's start with 2021, post COVID, his WRC plus on each season, 171, 135, 96, 141. And then this season, 151, right? This isn't even his best one. He was actually arguably better than this for 61 games in 2021. But he only played 61 games, right? Because I went through those numbers, that 121 and 171. The game totals on those years are 61, 92, 85, 102, 77, right? He just don't play. That's the problem. So I talked about this in the hitter list, and it's, look, no one's going to sit here and say like if you tell me Byron Buxton plays the rest of the season, I tell you, okay, then he continues to be a top, probably 15 to 20 hitter, right? Again, we may see a couple up and downs. His plate discipline isn't as good as it once was. And it was never that. I mean, I guess it is as good as it once was because it was never that good, but he strikes out a bit. He's had issues with that in the past. The problem of obviously is that he's played 140 games one time in his career. That was in 2017. His highest total since then was last year, actually, at 102. That means, if you're playing averages, you got him for about half the rest of the season. If he ends up being anything, if he ends up being towards the higher end of his games played total in his career, you got him for about half the rest of the season. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows Byron Buxton's, reputation, that he misses a bunch of time. Him and Royce Lewis. Everybody knows it. You can't sell high on Byron Buxton because you're going to have to give a big discount for that risk. So my argument would be don't trade away Byron Buxton, right? If we're talking redraft, short-term keeper, don't trade away Byron Buxton. Trade into it, right? So say like, look, I might lose Byron Buxton for the half the rest of my games. I need another outfielder or a guy to play whatever, either outfield or utility that he's been playing. I need power and speed, right? Or something, right? Like you've been getting everything from Buxton. He's been a 5-category contributor. You may not find another 5-category contributor. But this is a great time to see if you can go and grab someone maybe who's been underperforming in the first half, who could be one of those things, right? I'm talking Wyatt Langford. I'm talking Julio Rodriguez. This is a great time to take that gamble because it's It's risk, sure, but it's a great mitigant, right? Because you're like, hey, look, I might lose Byron Buxton, but by then Wyatt Langford might have figured this all out, right? By then Julio Rodriguez might be killing it, right? Like I can take that other risk because Byron Buxton might actually end up keeping me going all the way through, right? And then I've got a great problem, which is, oh, which one do I start today? Oh no, I've got 2 all-stars. What do I do? Like, don't worry about that. Like, that's the kind of move I'd be making. I'd be looking for a buy low in the outfield with big upside to potentially step in, right? I talked about some of the higher name ones, but you don't necessarily have to go quite that big, right? Like you could go any number of ways. You could look at, like, I'm just going to try to quick scan, see who's been underperforming. Like if you don't need it to be a specific position, maybe you can get Freddie Freeman, who looks like that injury's been bothering him a lot, but he's about to get a week off, right? He could very well turn it on for the second half. That'd be something I'd be interested in. If someone's trying to sell high on Joe Adell, that's definitely a move I'd be looking to make because he's got that kind of talent. Marcell Ozuna is a guy who, obviously he's looked really bad and I've been moving him down the list hard, but it wouldn't be that hard to get him, right? Like you could put in a pretty decent offer and probably get him because people aren't trying to hold on to it, right? I think those are the kinds of moves I'm trying to make if I have Byron Buxton because I want to keep going, right? Your team's probably in pretty good shape right now with Byron Buxton. So look at those guys who have underperformed and try to get one of them to see if, like, hey, by the time Buxton goes down, if he goes down, maybe this other guy can step in and really start taking off for me.
Yeah, you'll laugh at this, Scott. My very first pitcher list article in March of 2023 was titled, "But what if he stays healthy?" And it was basically guys who were being underdrafted because of their health risks. And guess who was the headliner in that one? It was your boy Byron Buxton. And of course, one of the things that I said is if he reaches 500 plate appearances for the first time since 2017, he could be a top 25 player. And lo and behold, here we are halfway through the season. He's got 330 plate appearances and he's darn close to a top 25 player in fantasy.
Oh, I mean, he's a top 15 player in fantasy right now. Here's the problem. You say gets to 500. Let's start with 400. He hasn't been to 400 either. So obviously it's a huge risk. But again, my thought is don't trade away the injury risk guy because you're going to have to give a big, huge, giant discount. Ride that wave and trade for his replacement if he goes down, right? It could be a high-end guy. It could be could be more of like a sleeper, whatever it is. And we can, if you want to reach out to me on social media, if the Chu fits over on Twitter or, scottchu.pitcherlist.com over on Blue Sky, or get me on Reddit, Chusif Esquire at the AMAs. We can talk about guys you might try to trade for with what you have, but that's what I would be doing if I had Byron Buxton.
Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more first half stuff after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. Brett Ford here with Scott Chu, talking hitters on Pitcher List. And we are diving into some of the biggest stories in the first half. We talked about fantasy MVP candidates over the course of the first half of the season. Let's talk about some big surprises from the first half of the year, at least from a fantasy perspective, Scott. And one of the things that kind of went differently than I envisioned it, especially in my draft preparation, was the way that the first base position has played out so far. Just the depth of first base and versus the way that I prepared for it. Like I went into drafts thinking I need one of the top 4 guys, or I'm just going to be at such a deficit at the position because there's so much of a gap between those top 4 and the rest of the field. But it hasn't necessarily played out that way.
It's not just that it's deep, Brett. It's how it got deep, right? So a position could be deep because a bunch of the guys we drafted at the top all stayed good, right? Like, oh yeah. Oh, and some of the guys that were definitely drafted, but maybe not drafted quite so high, maybe they're doing good too. So it's super deep, but not anything you can do anything about, right? Either you drafted it or you didn't. That's not what's happened with first base, right? Because with first base, it's been loaded with guys you did not have to draft, or maybe that even got dropped early in the season, right? We're talking Michael Busch, We're talking Jonathan Aranda. We're talking Tyler Soderstrom. We're talking Spencer Torkelson, who at the beginning of the offseason, we didn't even think was going to make the team, right? Yandy Diaz likely got dropped in some places, right? Like Gavin Sheets has been incredibly useful, right? Like Nolan Shantnuel has his flaws, right? But you've been able to use Ryan O'Hearn at times, Alec Burleson at times. Alec Boehm has been cut, and if he was, you can still go get him, right? Like a lot of these, Wilmer Flores was a star for about a month. Ben Rice was a star for about a month. Like there's been so many options at any given moment at first base. Options that are actually available to you on the wire. That's what's made it so different. So many of these guys coming out and being useful for a decent chunk of time, if not, this whole time, right? So not all of them have been useful the whole time. Like Paul Goldschmidt was very good for a while, and then he's really kind of come down lately. And same for Tyler Soderstrom, although it seems like he might be coming back up a little bit. And that on top of the guys we did draft also being good, right? Pete Alonso has been strong. Matt Olson turning it back on. Josh Naylor has been good. Cody Bellinger has looked good, right? Freddie Freeman has obviously come down in the last, couple of weeks, but he certainly started strong, and he's, overall still a top 15 first baseman, right? The only real, I guess, disappointment out of the early first baseman is Bryce Harper because he was hurt, I guess, like Jake Berger, but he wasn't a top 100 pick, right? Like that's it. Those are the disappointments at first base. So yeah, it's deep because everybody's doing it. Everybody's getting involved. Then guys we didn't think would get involved also are getting involved. It's made the position just crazy, crazy deep. And again, the most important point to me, and Vinny Pasquantino, who probably got cut after a bad April, has been very good since then. Lots of guys that have been available off the wire. That's why people have said, well, hey, I have Aranda and I have Torkelson. Should I trade one? And what I've said is that's going to be really tough because everybody's got a first baseman, right? Now, in some formats, some of these guys might have position eligibility other places, right? And I mean, I think that, there was a lot of excitement about Ben Rice getting catcher eligibility in some leagues, and I don't think that's gone anywhere. Obviously, I didn't even mention Nick Kurtz. Nick Kurtz has been obviously really turning it on of late. Everybody's got a first baseman, right? And it's sort of like, I felt bad. There was people like, oh, should I be the one to go get Nick Kurtz? And it's like, well, no, you've already got two of them and you don't have one to play, right? Like you've got you've got Michael Busch and Josh Naylor. Go get Kurtz if you want, but it's just going to burn a spot on your bench, right? Like, oh, what if I'll try to trade him. Everybody's already got a first baseman, right? There's like 15 of them that are good in a 12-team league. Everybody's got one. So that to me has been the big surprise. It's all the guys sort of who were like basically every first base sleeper hit. Like everyone that we were like, oh, but maybe, right? Jonathan Aranda was like barely ranked, but I was like, but maybe, what if, right? Oh, Spencer Torkelson's going to make the team. Hey, maybe. Tyler Soderstrom showed some power last year. Hey, maybe. It all worked. It's like ridiculous.
And you know what? We'll take it. I mean, you got to take your fantasy wins where you can get them. And this year we got him at first base so far. So hopefully that sticks around for the second half. A position that's kind of similar to first base in as far as the way it has panned out in this first half with a lot of guys emerging and kind of, like you said about first baseman being available at some point over the course of the season, has been shortstop as well. Now, granted, there's not quite as much depth there, but the shortstops that are ascending so far in this first half have provided some depth to the position, and it is as strong as we probably thought it was, maybe stronger.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, the thing that we had with shortstop was it was like so loaded all at the top, right? It was just silly how good it was in terms of just like the first guys that went in the top, like 25 picks, right? Like it was Lindor and Witt and Turner and like just like everybody. That's not what it, as you sort of alluded to, that's not what it looks like now. Like, yes, the top of this position is still dominated by guys that were drafted early, right? Ellie De La Cruz. Bobby Witt Jr. is actually the second best shortstop on the season this year. As much as it's felt like a quote unquote disappointment, he's still there. Trey Turner, Francisco Lindor, they still dominate the top, right? CJ Abrams up there as well. Bit of a disappointment in Mookie Betts and Gunnar Henderson, but they've been serviceable. But you're right. It is the other guys that have come up, right? Now, you probably had to draft him, but Jeremy Pena has been, he's been fantastic. Geraldo Perdomo has just, especially in points leagues, this dude's been an all-star. He's been good everywhere, but especially in points, right? Zach Neto, who really broke out last season, was going to miss the first month. And we were like, there was a lot of trepidation on draft pick. I'm glad I kept him in my ranks where I did, because the dude's he's already a top 10 shortstop despite having like 100 fewer plate appearances than some of these guys, right? Trevor Story. Trevor Story is the biggest surprise because like his plate discipline is still garbage, but he's finding a way to get it done. Right. And he's the one I'm most skeptical of long-term, because he's got, as I've talked about a lot, 2 risks, right? He's got performance risk because he swings a lot. He doesn't have great contact ability. But he's hot right now, so you got to ride it. But also he has huge, massive injury risk, right? Like every much the last few years is a guy like Buxton. So that's a concern, but he's still going. You've got CEDDANNE RAFAELA, who's, again, he's up and down as well because of the nature of his game. You've got Jacob Wilson, who was top 5 not long ago. He's had quite a big slump. He's still top 12, right? He's still putting a lot of balls in play. And then you've got, Zach McKinstry has come out of nowhere. O'Neal Cruz has been very frustrating for the last month, but when he's hot, he's one of the best in baseball. You've got Dansby Swanson being that, like he is every year, just reliable dude, right? There's so many options here. You got Willie Adames, who's been pretty good over the last month, right? He's starting to come up. Don't even get me started on Javi Baez, who's been useful in fantasy multiple times this year, right? Like that was not anyone's bingo card. So, the one thing I will say about this position is there's 2 guys who have not been good so far that I think will be a lot better. One of them, mostly because he's been hurt, Corey Seager. He got hurt, then he had a really bad month. It's not going to be long before he's in the top 15 shortstop. Another guy I think really can turn it around and be much better than he's been ranked so far. That is going to be Anthony Volpe. I still believe that in the power and speed there. I know he's looked just god awful at times for the Yankees, especially while they were slumping, but I do think there's something there. So keep an eye on him while he's on the waiver wire, which is probably where he is in most leagues. Go ahead and just keep an eye on him, right? In those 12-team leagues, that's where he probably is. Just, be aware of it. See if he starts turning around. The guy I'm not a super big fan of right now, even though he's hitting okay since rejoining the team, Ha-Seong Kim. Because shortstop has been so deep, you just kind of don't need this. His playing time's a little bit in question. Like he's been playing most every day other than those couple days where I guess he was hurt. I don't know. But man, there's no power in that bat, right? Like there wasn't that much before. And he was hitting the ball like 83 miles an hour off the bat in the minors. And it's like about the same here in the majors. Not super interested in that. Honestly, his return, happy for him personally. But it kind of stinks because Jose Caballero is becoming a very useful player to have because he was leading the Major League Baseball in steals, and he's got he's still playing, but the path's always harder. Thankfully, the Rays are always hurt. Someone is always hurt over there. It's getting some playing time, but yeah, shortstop, crazy deep. It also means you don't need to hold on too long to like the Mason Winds of the world, right? There's options. Go ahead and in 12 teamers, especially the ones that don't have the middle infield, just burn and churn. The position is proven it's deep enough to do that. You don't have to hold, especially those guys that you didn't really take in the top 150 anyway.
Well, we move on from a couple positions that have been deep and shown a lot of exciting things at each position in first base and shortstop to a position that I don't know if depth is the right term for it or a lack of depth is the right term for it, but at the very least there's been some surprises at the top as far as this positional depth chart in fantasy drafts this preseason, and that's second base. Second basemen have kind of struggled league wide, and fantasy managers who may have waited at the position in the draft are getting paid off for it more than maybe the ones who took second base early.
Yeah, There are no second basemen in the top 30 hitters so far in terms of performance this season. There's not a single one of them at second base. The best second baseman on the year so far has been Jose Altuve, followed by Brandon Lowe, Brandon Lau, who, let's be clear, actually started off terribly. He had like a terrible April, and he's still the second best one. And like Jose Altuve's had moments where he's looked terrible. They're still the best ones because the position's just been garbage, right? In terms of like fantasy value, it's been garbage. And a lot of that happened at the top, right? So Ketel Marte's been good when he's played, but obviously he missed time. He's about 100 plate appearances short of where he needed to be. Bryce Terang has been, pretty good. Maikel Garcia has been pretty good. I don't buy the home runs. Like, I don't think he's going to get to more than, I still think Maikel Garcia's max is like 15. And that's a lot more than he's ever hit before. I think his record's like 7 or 8 or something like that. He's not a home run hitter. And like Jazz Chisholm's been pretty decent. Some guys have been decent, but this position right now is dominated by guys who we took after pick like 150, 200. Between Lau and Garcia, Nico Horner, Zach McKinstry, Brendan Donovan, Gleyber Torres, Otto Lopez, right? Marcus Semion's had a resurgence to get himself back into the top 12 at the position, right? But even then, I'm still a little worried because I was like, dude, the last time you had a slump, it lasted a calendar year, right? Like, it was bad. Like, how much can I trust that? Now, there are players at the position who I think are going to get a lot better, right? Unfortunately, it's not probably Matt McLean. I still have some issues there. Like, he's getting a little better. I have nothing good. I don't have any good news for you on Ozzy Albies, who's probably the biggest disappointment at the position this season. I don't have a lot of positive news for you on Xander Bogaerts. I do think there's a couple of Orioles who can really maybe turn a corner here. That's Jordan Westberg, who is really aggressive. We had a great article come out about it last year. He has a high swinging strikeout rate or a high swinging strike rate and a low strikeout rate because he's super aggressive early. However, that can also make you very streaky, right? Because you're not giving yourself a lot of pitches to see, swinging at the first thing you get. So you're going to be really sensitive to changes in how pitchers attack you, right? You've got to be seeing the ball really, really well to make that work. He's shown he can do it in the past. I think he can get back there. I'm actually even more excited about Jackson Holliday. He's currently number 13 across second baseman, according to Fangraphs Player Rater. He's seen the toughest pitching of anyone, according to our PLV metrics, I think in the month of June, where he was at least in the top 3. And he held his own, right? He didn't have a great month, right? He didn't have a great month, but he had a decent month. And that's a young player who has had a lot of ups and downs, right? He's someone who I think can really turn a corner, be good the rest of the way, be a starter for you. So if you've been relying on Zach McKinstry, you might consider going out and trading for a guy like Jackson Holliday, because I don't have that confidence in McKinstry. As much as I love him as a real baseball player, this kind of offensive performance is unlikely to continue. But yeah, I think those two guys can really turn around. I think Colt Keith is showing some power, and that's interesting. But like after that, there's not a lot here. Like, there are guys who might be better than they were. Like Jonathan India might be serviceable the rest of the year, but he was never exciting in the first place, right? And the other was Brooks Lee, but he'll probably be okay for a while, right? Andres Jimenez couldn't get it done for fantasy when he was hitting 4th. You can't get it done when you're hitting 4th. When are you going to get it done? Right? So it's a scary position. I mean, I think at some point Christian Campbell comes back and maybe he shows us something. Nick Gonzalez, for Pittsburgh, has been showing really strong plate discipline lately. I'm kind of interested in that. But this is a position where if you don't have a good one, you're going to keep throwing darts at the wall, because the only advantage you have is that nobody is like, oh yeah, I'm being carried by my second baseman. That's nobody, right? Except for like, yeah, I'm being carried by my second baseman and I'm in 10th, right? Like that's how that works. So no one's being carried by their second baseman. So you can kind of keep keep throwing darts out there, right? I recommend against trading for a second baseman, because what one's it going to be, right? Either someone has one of the good second basemen, and they're probably not that interested in giving him up, because you're not going to have a good one to give back to them. Not like you would with outfield or first base, something like that. And like, because nobody's got one. Like very few people in your league are feeling like, oh, I feel really good at second base. Like, I think this can work. Right? That's half your league, and they're probably not all competing. Right? So that's a tough position to trade for. I'd keep throwing darts at the waiver wire, seeing what you can get, right? Jose Caballero keeps playing, like, go get your stolen bases. Xavier Edwards he's hitting for average. He's not running the way we hoped, but he's running a little, right? If Tommy Edman, heats up a little, go get him. If he stays cold, go ahead and let him go, right? Just keep burning and churning at second base. Some people are going to cut players who are probably worth scooping at any given time. Just, if someone cuts Jordan Westberg, just kind of, pick him up, shake the leaves a little bit, see if anything falls out. That's the way I'm handling that in leagues where I don't have a second baseman, and it's going okay. It's going okay. And unfortunately, I wish I could say like, oh, I've got these big sleeper names that are definitely available in your league to go get, right? But there's a reason we started this year talking so much about Kyren Paris. It's because we already thought short second base was shallow. We already thought that, even though we saw every flaw in Kyren Paris, we knew exactly what he was. We're like, yeah, but second base sucks, right? Like if he breaks the mold, this could work. And so we're going to keep doing that at second base. And it's okay if you're doing that. Don't panic because you're weak at second base. Everybody's weak at second base.
Yeah. I'm just kind of taking a scroll through the second base rankings, and like nobody's really got an advantage there. Like nobody's really got that one guy who like, oh, I've got Cal Raleigh. I'm going to beat you at catcher this week. I have that position locked up. I don't have to worry about it. Like there's no ascendant second baseman like that in the league this year. And it's going to be tough to identify who that's going to be the second half for sure.
Yeah. Like, do you know who the best second baseman's been for the last month? Zach McKinstry. So if you're getting an advantage from second base, you're going to find that it's at a specific category or two, right? Like, oh, I've got Jose Altuve. I'll probably get more home runs than your second baseman. I've got Brandon Lau. I'll probably get more home runs than your second baseman. I'm streaming, Maikel Garcia. I'm probably going to have a better average than your second baseman, right? Or Gleyber, I've got Gleyber Torres. I've probably got you on runs and batting average on your second baseman. But after that, it's a crapshoot, folks. Like Nolan Gorman's a top 12 second baseman this last month. He's hitting 224, right? And it's not like he's got a whole bunch. Like he's got decent counting stats, like for a second baseman. Over the last 30 days, he's got 17 runs and 15 RBI. Guys, that's not that good, right? Like it's fine. Right? Like he's not a top 30 hitter in the last 30 days. Heck, I don't even think he's he's not a top 60. He's hitter number 90 the last 30 days. Nolan Gorman. Again, I'm talking a lot about second base. Just keep throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. Don't go crazy trying to trade, because most people don't even have a good one for you to trade for anyway. And they certainly don't have two of them. Right? So just keep throwing stuff against the wall, see what sticks. Look at the name, all those things, go for it.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with Scott's top 150 hitters list, the All-Star break version, after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. I'm Brett Ford here with Scott Chu. Every week, Scott puts out the top 150 hitters list on Pitcher List. It's a ranking of all the hitters in fantasy baseball, or at least the top 150 of them. Scott and I talk about the guys who have risen in the list over the past week, as well as the guys who have fallen. So we'll talk right into the risers, Scott. Let's start in tier 7, ranked 44th overall, up 12 spots this week. Houston Astros corner infielder Isaac Paredes.
Yeah, so Paredes has moved in the leadoff spot. He started doing that on June 28th. He's doing fairly well. I wish he had more counting stats, but this Astros offense is really up and down. That said, in the leadoff spot, 61 plate appearances, he has a 9.8% walk rate and an 11.5% strikeout rate. That's exactly what you want to see. He's hitting 278, 361, 481 in that leadoff spot. It's only 9 runs scored, though. I think that number can get a bit better as this offense kind of finds its footing a little more. It kind of stinks that we've seen Cam Smith come down a little bit of late. He could really help that offense. Getting Yordan Alvarez back, whenever the heck that's going to be, would be a huge lift here. But he could absolutely keep this leadoff spot. They didn't really I think they like having Jose Altuve hitting in the middle of the order now. Even when Jeremy Pena comes back, there's a spot for, there's a spot for Paredes at the top of that lineup. This is a guy, I know he has not actually been a top 50 hitter so far this season, but I'm telling you, just wait. Like, he's built for this park. He's hitting the ball well. The results aren't quite what we want, but he did hit 2 doubles today. He's got 3 home runs so far out of this leadoff spot in his last 61 plate appearances. It's going to come, right? He's going to get, I still think he's a pretty darn good lock for 30 home runs this year. If not 35, if he goes on a little heater. The ratios are as good as they've ever been. He's probably going to set a career high, I think, in batting average and OBP. Slugging is a little hit or miss because he hit a bunch of home runs in Tampa a few years ago, but Isaac Paredes is the man. Like, just buy in if anyone's selling, right? And you can always get people to sell Isaac Paredes, because if they don't know about the pull rate thing and how he only ever has to hit the ball about 340 feet, they'll go look at his StatCast sliders, see they're all blue, and be like, oh man, this guy's getting lucky. No, he's not. He makes his own. Well, let's say he is. He makes his own luck because he always hits the ball straight down the freaking foul line. And that means he does not have to hit the ball. And you can have an average exit velocity of 86 miles an hour when you only have to hit it 340 feet, right? You can do that, right? You don't need it to be perfect. They don't need to be barrels, right? Like, he has a subpar barrel rate, and he doesn't need one, right? Because he's not actually trying to hit the ball that far. So that's why he's always going to overperform his expected slugging, is because expected slugging, as I mentioned earlier in the show, StatCast does not factor in batted ball direction, right? But if you go to our pitcher list site, you look at his player page there, you'll see better expected stats, not great still, but better, because we do factor in that angle. And nope, like I said, batted ball direction can be a little fluky. Isaac Paredes is an exception. He always pulls the ball. It is 100% what he's trying to do. He always does it. And that is a bankable thing. So again, if anyone's trying to sell low, if you can get, if you can kind of get them to look at those blue StatCast sliders and be like, oh, this isn't right. No, it is right. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. And he's still going to hit 30 home runs.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised when I looked at his home and road splits. He's got 19 home runs on the season. Only 10 of them are at home. So
that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's not how this is going to work. Just give it time.
I think there's room for positive regression there. I think that he's got a chance to, like you say, crack 30, crack 35. So good signs there for Isaac Paredes. He's up to 44 in this week's hitters list. And Scott, I don't know if I should just mute my mic and give you about 15 to 30 seconds to just yell into yours here for the next guy that we're going to cover. But I know this is a personal favorite of yours, and he was the cover boy for the hitter list this week.
You take your opportunity and get him. I already got my little GIF/video clip that Sperry made for us last week about, getting torqued, which, you should all do when you have a moment to just get a little torqued. It's good for you. It's good for the soul. So Torque did have a bit of a down, like, I don't want to call it down week, because he's still been quite useful, right? He's still hitting home runs. He's still doing the things that we want him to do. He's striking out a little bit more this last week. I'm not overly concerned about it, because like his rolling strikeout rate still looks real good. It's nothing like the high 30s and 40s that we saw last year. The walk rate is, average, which is fine. I think that he's going to continue to be a top 50, he's going to be a top 50 hitter the rest of the season. Right. Right now I rank him at 64 because I'm trying to slide him back up there because I had to factor in the risk. But if you were to ask me, Scott, are you willing to take a chance on Spencer Torkelson? Yes, I do think he's got a chance to be a top 50 rest of the way. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's where he was when we come back from the break. So big fan of Spencer Torkelson. He's still doing all the things we want him to do. And as I've mentioned before, and I've showed those process rolling charts on our site that bring in his power, his contact ability, his decision-making. Spencer Torkelson's been one of the best swing decision makers in the league all season long. None of that is really changing right now. His contact ability is suspect. That's where the strikeouts come from. But this dude makes the right swing decisions. And as long as he keeps doing that, that ceiling is going to be there for him to be a top 50, if not at times top 30 hitter in baseball.
Well, we'll move on from the Detroit Tigers to the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox are hitting the ball really well recently and have climbed your ranks in part because of it. Both Ceddanne Rafaela and Trevor Story are up 36 spots this week to number 86 and 88 respectively in the list. And Rafaela's really broken out. It's kind of been more of a story of what he's doing, and Story has kind of quietly ascended the ranks. What's happening in Boston?
This team is crazy hot right now, and that stuff tends to be really contagious. So the biggest thing with Rafaela is the strikeout rate has really come down over the last few weeks. I mean, it's way down. He hit another home run today to give himself 2 more RBI. That drop in strikeout rate is a big deal for a guy who just does not walk, right? But he's brought his season-long strikeout rate below 20%. It's actually much less than that. If you go back to June 27th, right? A guy who at times was striking out at 40% last year, 9.1% strikeout rate over his last 55 plate appearances. That does not include today, where he did strike out one more time, but only one more time. So he should still be, probably around 10%. That's fantastic. While hitting the ball on average 93.1 miles an hour, slugging .811 in that span due to, one, a bunch of home runs, but also a boatload of doubles because dude can fly, right? Rafaela's got power and he's got speed. With this contact, he is a scary good player. Now, volatility has also been a big part of Rafaela's story. It's not like he's like one of these ground ball guys or anything like that. The zone contact has been a lot better this year. That's the thing that's kind of carrying him right now. It was always hovering at or below that 80% mark that I've talked about so many times. That's looking a lot better right now. As long as that stays up, he can continue to really look like a guy who can probably go 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases. But I think the batting average is probably going to come down, but hey, he keeps making this kind of contact. I don't know. I mean, when I like the zone contact's a big deal, although I shouldn't bury the lead. His hard hit rate is up over 10% from last season. His average exit velocity is up over 4% from last season and 5% from the year before that. His barrel rate is darn near doubled, right? Like the quality of contact has gone through the roof. Now, the one thing these stats cannot differentiate is heater versus skill change. He's been doing it for a while. So that means, there's a decent chance there's a skill change here. We just don't know to what degree, right? Because you can have both things at the same time. You can have made a change for the better and also be hot. So I would expect this to come down just a little bit because, it's just risk for a guy to always be this much better than he's ever been before, but he's definitely better than he's ever been before.
His stats page on his pitcher list bio, there's a lot of similarities between Ceddanne Rafaela and Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG as far as what improvements they've made, what adjustments they've made, and kind of the stats that have reflect that. The zone contact rate has increased, the strikeout rate has come down, and the home run to fly ball has gone up. So,
well, they're very similar players at some levels, right? Especially if you look at what they were last season. They were guys that can hit double-digit home runs. They can steal a bunch of bases. They never walk, and they struck out quite a bit because they had contact issues, right? They were both sub 300 OBP guys, right? Like, I mean, heck, Rafaela's OBP on the season is still only 313, but that's a big deal for Rafaela because that's what those guys have to do. They have to be able to make contact in the zone because they're not trying to walk, right? Like Sal Perez never would have been Sal Perez if he missed too many balls in the zone. Right. He could be crazy aggressive because he didn't miss in the zone that much. Right. So these guys had to get better at making contact in the zone. The best versions of Rafaela and Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG are what we're seeing right now because they make all those changes at once without giving anything else up. Can they keep doing that? To some level, yes, maybe not this level. That's like the big, whenever we're like coming out and as analysts, we're saying, oh, well, he's not this good. What we mean is, at least for these two guys, they absolutely can do this. They just may not always be doing all of these things at once.
We'll take a look at tier 11, ranked number 95 overall. He's up 31 spots. That's New York Yankees outfielder Jasson Dominguez. Dominguez hitting well for the Yankees and is rising up your ranks because of it. He jumps into the top 100 hitters this week. Tell us why.
Well, he started leading off. So he led off 4 times this week, 4 straight games against righties. They had 2 games against lefties over the weekend. He played one of them. He didn't play the other. And of course, since then, he's not done a lot of hitting, but he did have that 3-hit game on the 9th. He had a 2 home run game on Independence Day. He's been rattling off these. In fact, his last 5 games with a hit are multi-hit games. He just has 3 games without hits in that span. But look, he's hitting the ball crazy hard. He's doing the things they want him to do. And this team is in dire need of a leadoff man. And unless they go and trade for one, which I'm not so certain that they will, Dominguez fits the bill about as good as anybody, right? Like that's secretly, that's been my hope for Anthony Volpe, is that he makes some of the same changes that we saw with RAFAELA and Pete CROW-ARMSTRONG, because he's got some of that stuff. But that's the guy I want to see. Like I wanted to see Volpe, but Dominguez, obviously every bit as talented and certainly playing better right now, not by much over the last 7 days, but over the last 2 weeks or so, he's definitely been better. If he gets that leadoff spot and can maybe play every day, things could really change for him. We've seen Trent Grisham really just lose a ton of playing time. He might be a casualty of this. Giancarlo Stanton kind of eats up that DH spot, but left field, Dominguez is starting to make a bid to say, I should just be the left fielder every day. We don't need to move Bellinger into left so that Grisham can come in, all these other things. I think he's going to make that bid, and he's doing a darn good job of it. So I'm excited about what he could be.
We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with the fallers on Scott's top 150 hitters list after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. I'm Brett Ford. He's Scott Chu. We're talking fallers on the hitters list this week. Scott, we've got 5 names here that have fallen, ranging from a small fall, like a 1-tier drop, all the way to a 54 spot free fall. Talk us through these 5 names. We've got Seattle outfielder Julio Rodriguez, San Diego Padres outfielder Jackson Merrill, Los Angeles Dodgers shortstop Mookie Betts, Kansas City Royals third baseman MAIKEL Garcia, and Pittsburgh Pirates outfielder BRYAN Reynolds.
Yeah. So Julio Rodriguez, he makes a bit of a dip. There's a lot of hitting is really deep in the top 50. He falls, of course, right after that. He has an excellent series against the Tigers. And I do think he might be on the rise, but the question still remains about power. I think I know what Julio Rodriguez is everywhere else, right? I think he can hit for a decent batting average. It'll be a little volatile. I know he can steal bases. I know he's going to hit in the middle of this order pretty much no matter what. I don't know exactly where the power is. Is it 20 to 25, or is there still that upshot of being a 30 home run guy, which we've seen in the past, where he's pushing to be like a top 5 hitter overall? We don't know that yet. I think he's a great player to buy, especially again, as I talked about a lot earlier, if you've got like a Byron Buxton in a hole and you need to make a push, I think he's a great guy to go for. I also think he's a guy that maybe you trade out to mitigate risk if you've been sitting in. I mean, you can look at it a couple of ways if you've been sitting at the top of the leaderboard for quite some time, but if you're in need of power, maybe you go and trade Julio Rodriguez and get safer power, and that kind of thing. But so he's a guy I think that's going to get traded in a lot of leagues, but I still like him overall, right? I still rank him in my top 50, but it's going to be hard. It's harder now than it was obviously many times earlier this season to see that path back to being like a top, like back into being like a tier 2 hitter. I'm not sure I see that. Jackson Merrill, power, right? So Jackson Merrill always had a great hit tool. We knew that. And I was very skeptical of Merrill's power last season. He won me over eventually, but it took a long time. And so what does he do? Of course, the power goes out, right? Now, maybe it's just the injury thing. Again, it's very possible that Jackson Merrill's rookie season is basically where he caps out in terms of power, right? Growth is not linear. Guys sometimes hit the most home runs they're going to hit kind of earlier in their career, and then just kind of stay around that mark, right? He's got 7 through 63 games right now. That is probably, if he played a full season, this would still be about 10 home runs off the pace that we'd really like him to see. He's lost 83 points a slug from last year. I think the batting average for Merrill's definitely going to go up, right? I'm surprised he hasn't stolen any bases. That's been another concern, but like the power speed numbers are a bit off-putting for me right now. I think everything else will correct itself. I think the batting average will be good. I think he will steal a couple more bases. I don't know how many, but certainly more than one in his next 63 games. But the home runs, if he's only a 15 home run hitter, he moves down quite a bit because it just takes so much ceiling off the top that it scares me. So that's kind of where I'm looking at Jackson Merrill right now. And let's keep going, right? Power is also my issue with Mookie Betts. Everything I look at from our PLV numbers, Mookie Betts is just not showing any power really at all. Not with any consistency, right? He'll hit some home runs here and there, but I think the power might be gone for Mookie Betts. Like not gone, right? Like, but that number we saw last year with him, I think it was 19. He's going to have a hard time getting to that, right? He had 19 home runs last year in 116 games. He's only got 11 through 88, right? Like it is a slightly uphill battle to get to 10, right? Like 10 more so that he gets to 20. And again, I do think the batting average can come up. This BABIP is like crazy, crazy low. I know that his expected stats are down, but like they're not this far down. I think that he can at least be a 260 or 270 hitter, even if he's not the 300 hitter that he's been at times in his career. I think the counting stats will continue to be there because he plays for the Dodgers, right? That's something he's going to get, and that's going to keep that floor really high. That position eligibility really helps, but he's been a negative asset on your team for at least the last month, if not a little longer. So it's a big concern, especially for the power. He's not a player I'm targeting in trades as like a buy low, right? I think that he's a fine hold if you need what he might be able to do, right? I think he can get better in the average. I think his OBP obviously will improve. I think he'll continue to get runs. He'll get more RBI than you would expect for a guy with these kinds of numbers, right? Like he's got no business having 45 RBI right now. And like that's through 88 games. That's not a ton of RBI, but it's certainly a lot more than I would expect him to have with, while hitting 246 and slugging under 400. Right. But that's because he gets to hit second every single day. So there'll still be value there, but your chance of getting anything close to what you drafted for are out the window. You're lucky if you can get a top, 75 player rest of the way. I think that's kind of where we're at with Mookie Betts. Obviously I rank him 56th. Because I still want to say like, hey, there's still some potential to be even a top 40. If any power comes, if the power starts coming back, everything changes dramatically. But if the power doesn't come back, you're hoping you get a top 75 to 80 hitter. My 56 ranking is hedging a little bit to say we might see the power come back, right? We might. I can't understand why it's gone so quickly, so completely, right? Something must be up. Hopefully it comes back. If it doesn't, you still get a top 100 player because of all those counting stats, but not by as much as you'd like. All right, I guess I'll keep talking power, right? Because that's another Maikel Garcia. Maikel Garcia was hitting for a lot more power earlier this season. A lot of that has disappeared. The difference with Garcia over these other guys is I never thought Garcia really had that much to begin with. I was willing to be proven wrong. He's been a top 50 hitter so far on the season, but that's really driven by, his May and June were really good. And at the end of the season, a guy having 2 good months doesn't mean a lot to us, but at halfway point, having 2 good months means you're a top 50 hitter, but he has not hit a home run since, let's see, June 18th, right? And that's his only one since June 7th. He had a back-to-back games for the home run a little before then, but it's nothing since then. Maikel Garcia at times has shown like, oh, maybe he's a home run hitter. But he hit, I think, 4 in the first couple weeks last season and ended with 7. And he played the whole time last season. He's got 8 right now. Getting to 12 is an uphill battle. So I'm not sure how much I believe in Maikel Garcia's power, but everything else is still there, right? Like I think the counting stats will get better. I think this offense, I'm still waiting for Bobby Witt to have that summer like he had last year. He was the best player in all of baseball. He's been good, but he hasn't been great at times. I think he can be that great. And when he does, it changes really how this whole offense looks. Cause now you're finally scared of somebody. You're not just scared of someone in theory. You're scared of someone for real. especially from the power department. They just don't have big power on this team, especially with Sal Perez struggling so much to begin the year. Now he's coming back around. This offense might get a little better, but Garcia still looks like a guy where his main value is that he's going to steal 30 bases. But what we have seen from him, to say something nice, he's improved his launch angle just a little bit. He's improved that barrel rate just a little bit, that hard hit rate just a little bit from last season. That means the batting average has gone way up. He's got enough speed. He's got, what it takes to have a much better batting average than he's shown in the past. So I think that part can stick around. That's why he's better than he was last season, but I still don't think that there's a top, he's been a top 50 hitter. He's been a top 50 hitter on the year so far. And I just don't see that. And I don't have anything to say about Bryan Reynolds besides he falls a long, long way because he's not looked good at all. A trade would be good for him. Oh, and the name that's not listed here among the fallers, Ozzie Albies, fell off entirely. So Ozzie Albies is not ranked at all right now. He's in the taxi squad. Yeah, you can cut him. 12-team leagues, you can let him go. 15-teamers, you probably got to hold. Deep leagues, you got to hold. Dynasty, you got to hold. But in a redraft, you can let him go. Just go take a shot at second base somewhere. Yeah, it might blow up in your face a little bit, but you can't keep waiting. Not if you're competing. There's just no signs of life, and there weren't that many last year either.
Well, that wraps up Hacks and Jacks. Scott, tell people where they can find you and your work.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at if the Chu fits, if the CHU fits. You can find me on Blue Sky, scottchu.pitcherlist.com. I'm only posting like 2 or 3 times a week right now because that's when I remember to look up a chart to show you all. But if you want to see charts, that's what I do. And you can find me on Reddit, u/Chuseph, CHUSEPH Esquire. I do the AMA every Friday with Nate Schwartz. So finally got some help there. So we get to answers a bit quicker right out the gate, especially on your pitching questions. So please come out, hang out. There's tons of great questions that come in there. They just fly in all day and really all weekend. And of course, the hitter list comes out Wednesday night, Thursday morning is where it's been because real life is a pain in the butt. And I got too many kids, but occasionally I'm able to get it out on Wednesday. Otherwise it'll be Thursday morning, midday.
And I'm Brett Ford. You can find me at Fade That Man on Twitter. You will probably see my Fab Insights column on Sunday afternoons, just discussing NFBC formats and Fab bidding. And that comes out on Sundays. And just a quick shameless plug for Pitcher List's sister site, QBlist.com. Football season is about to start, and I'll be working over there alongside of a lot of talented people talking football this fall as well. So keep an eye out for that as well. But for Scott, I'm Brett. That's the last episode of the first half of the season for Hacks and Jacks. Can you believe we made it this far, Scott?
Kicking and screaming, you've dragged me. What do you mean about to start? Starts in September. Oh,
get out of here. July 31st. I'm pretty sure the Hall of Fame game's on July 31st.
That's not football.
Is still football, sure.
That's
in the same way that spring training is baseball, baby.
Yeah, we don't say, the fantasy season starts here in March. Get out of here, February. Get out of here.
I'm already drafting, man. I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl. We're rolling.
I can't yell at you because I draft far too early as well. But like to say the season's almost here, it's not.
I've been dreaming about it since last night, really. That's what but,
that's a long time. That's hours, whole hours.
For Hacks and Jacks, I'm Brett. He's Scott. We'll be back same time, same channel next week. See you later.